Get ready.
Genesis does.
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does.
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis.
Hello and welcome to the SEGAbits Swingin Report Show, episode 59. I'm Barry, and with me is George.
Hello.
And Bartman.
Howdy.
Everybody do the Bartman. And on today's show, we are going to be talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog spin-off titles on the SEGA Genesis. Why? Because I made a great intro for the Genesis Month shows. We've only done 2, and I want to do more Genesis-themed content to take maximum advantage of that. Also, George and I are trying to get a special person on for an interview. I'm not going to say what it is because I hate being wrong. But if it does work out, it'll be a lot of fun. But before we get to that, we always go around saying what we've been up to and what we've been playing, and I always throw it to George. George.
Why do I have to go first?
Because I love putting you in a bad position.
Right now, I'm in like a club at school, I guess, and we're trying to get everybody together to play Phantasy Star Online 2. So I'm finally going to cave in, and I'm finally going to download the Japanese version. And so I've been doing that, and lately I've been playing this, like, the game's not that good, I'm going to be honest, but Loadout, I have like 50 hours on it, and the game isn't that good. It's just a shooting game, a third-person shooting game. But I don't know, I'm addicted to it. I don't know why. And that's what I've been playing. Huh?
I kind of had that same problem when I was playing like the original Phantasy Star Online, where like I was really intrigued to play, but in reality the game is actually super boring.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's repetitive, the same thing, but I don't know. I just like getting on for like an hour real quick.
Which game are you talking about? Your shooter?
It's called Loadout. It's a kind of like a cartoony, free-to-play third-person shooter on PC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's like about customizing guns and like unlocking new things and making the gun more powerful.
So now you know what Candy Crush Saga players feel like, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm so glad I never got into mobile. I swear I'd be so addicted.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I've been up to, and that's what I've been playing.
All right, Bartman? No, Bartman.
No, it hasn't really been a whole lot in terms of video games for me since I've been trying to prepare for my move. But I've been playing through my Kickstarter games that I've backed that have finally put out at least the first parts of them, which is like Broken Sword 5, finished that up, and then I started up playing Broken Age, which is the Double Fine game. Of course, the thing is, with both of those adventure games, like they try to hone, they try to replicate the same feeling of like those old adventure games from like the mid to late 90s that just kind of fell off the wayside. And they're fun, although I kind of feel like that there's probably something that's kind of missing from both of them, especially for like Broken Age, which I went through the boys' story in the beginning, and I somehow finished it in like maybe an hour, and I was like, I don't know if that's like literally supposed to be like half the game, like 1/4 of the game right there, since in Broken Age you play as a boy and a girl character, and they have two separate but eventually interconnecting storylines. And I kind of feel like that seems strangely short and kind of easy for what is to be like, a LucasArts, an adventure game that tries to evoke the feeling of what a LucasArts adventure game would present itself.
And what do you think about so you play the boys' story first, or you could pick which one you play first and beat it?
Yeah, you can pick whichever one you want to play first, and you can switch between them at any time, but I never really bothered with the girl because I just felt more interested in like what the setting was for the boy. And of course the boy is basically kind of he's in space, and he's in the space station, and he's being taken care of by this computer that pretty much has the persona of his mother. And because it's so overly protective and out of date, it never really accommodated for the fact that the boy would eventually grow up. So everything is obviously supposed to be tailor-made for a kid, but as like a growing teen, he just kind of grows tired of everything around him. Especially since there's not really a whole lot that can give him enough variety for anything that's going on. Like, I kind of find that part of the plot very interesting, but I don't really know much of anything about the girl because I only touched her for like maybe 2 minutes. Touch her in a good way,
Yeah, I was gonna say right now,
was
you
gonna say
touching is not the
something.
word you want to use on this.
Yeah. I experienced a little bit of the girl.
There you go. That's how we say it.
Yeah.
How about you, Barry?
I've been playing a lot of 3DS on my commute to work. I've been playing Bust a Move Universe that I picked up used for $5, and it's so weird. It's like it feels like you're playing a $2 iOS title, but they gave it a packaged release. It's fun. I like Bust a Move, but still, it's like it kind of sucks that I have to get a cartridge out to play such a game that is smaller than any game I have on my iPhone. Let's see what else I've been playing. I got back into what's that? Animal Crossing. At least for the last few days, I kind of when I take it out of the 3DS, I kind of don't go back to it for a long time because it's too much effort to switch games because I'm lazy. But
Yeah.
and I also feel like I've gotten the most out of it after 4 days. Like I'm like, all right, this is spring. I've experienced spring. I guess I'm going to turn it off till summer comes around or some holiday. But yeah, and I've gotten a few things. I bought a iCade Mobile at my local GameStop for $10. It was new, and it was like sitting in the corner on the floor. It was beaten up, ripped up, and sun damaged, and it had 5 stickers on it. The price dropped from like 70 or 50 all the way down to 10. It's pretty cool. We'll talk about it during the news portion, but the Fire TV that came out with Amazon, you can play Sonic 1 and 2 in CD on the TV. So with this, you can play it with physical buttons, at least on mobile, which is nice. What else did I get? Oh, and I bought a Dazzle HD recorder, so I'll be able to do some Sega Channel retro stuff in the coming future.
Finally.
Yeah. I'd especially like to stream Jet Set Radio later this month, the Japanese version, and Sega Pico games. So get excited. We're going to learn colors, numbers. George will finally know what comes after 15.
What comes after 15?
Well, I'm not going to spoil it for you.
I'm gonna Google it. I don't need to know.
It's girls.
Google what comes after 15.
Girls.
Girls.
Google will ask Barry.
Very nice. No, it'll say stay tuned to SEGAbits later. We bought AdSense. So that's what I've been up to. And,
Nice.
Let's throw it to George for the news.
Okay, that's it. All right. First of all, I guess the beta for Phantasy Star Online 2 Southeast Asia English starts soon, but it's IP blocked, so you can't really get into it. Well, you can't even register. The site is actually IP blocked. But Phantasy Star Online 2 ES, the Android and iOS, the open beta is already out right now in Japanese for the mobile version on Android, but not on iOS yet. And you could download it already. And I guess the long short of it is they added a card system called chips, which basically is like you could touch the card on the screen and it does the power, but there's chip points you could use, so you don't have to like spam them. And then there's an energy system which means you can't just play all day because there's a time limit, like most mobile games.
But they're also a step ahead of us, because at least on the Android version, because if you don't have a Japanese Android device, then you're going to get country blocked for your device. And there's no.
Oh, really? It's country blocked?
Yeah, I tried to download it on at least one of my devices, and it said no, like none of these are Japanese devices, so it's not even going to bother. Like developers are able to set what regions are able to download their games and whatnot. Like even the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney collection is also on Android, but they never released it in America. So if you try to download that from the App Store, it's going to be like, no, man, no, you're no good. It's not happening.
Well, the HD collection's in America on iOS.
Yeah, you can download it
on iOS, but not Android.
Ah, right. Okay. I forgot there's another platform.
Yeah, Android can. Yeah, I just noticed it says incompatible. Yeah, it says incompatible with my Nexus 7 and my Samsung 4. So yeah, you can. You most likely could get it when the APK comes out online, which we most likely will link to anyway. And that's the Phantasy Star Online 2 news.
So I guess
Amazon Fire came out, $100.
Oh.
What happened?
Yeah. Did you buy yours? Mine's on the way.
You bought one?
No, I
Yeah,
didn't.
you can buy one right now. They pull the Sega Saturn literally to the point of like, hey, so we are coming out with the Amazon Fire TV. In fact, it's coming out today. That's right.
No, I'm more impressed that Barry bought it because he
I didn't.
buying consoles.
I didn't.
Barry, you're a terrible journalist. How are you
I
not?
didn't.
How is the general public not going to know if you're not willing to test out anything that comes out?
Well, it was just as soon as it went live with my Amazon Prime, it was like, you can have it by Thursday. I was like, I could have it by Thursday, couldn't I, Amazon? But I didn't go for it because I don't have $100 right now.
Well,
But,
darn.
yeah, but how does it stack up against the other ones? I mean, I think, George, you were talking about how it doesn't really advertise that it's a media device, and you didn't even think that it did half the stuff that it can do.
I just wanted to buy an Ouya so I could put XBMC on it. That means you have to hack it and take the OS out. So I guess it's not really an Ouya. So, but it seems like Amazon is building this to first be a streaming box with games on it right now, and then later add more games, I guess, and make it more into a gaming platform.
Yeah.
Of course, part of the problem is you are limited to the Amazon ecosystem when you get into it. So, on the plus side, they do offer like their free app per day, and currently Sonic CD is one of those free apps. So if you get an Amazon Fire TV, apparently you can get Sonic CD absolutely free. And I guess that means that you can the apps that you download from their store is also tied to your same for like every other Amazon Kindle device that you have that will run those apps. So like basically anything that, of course, the games have to be specifically designed for the Fire TV. So like, Taxman, who converted Sonic 1, 2, and CD with stealth to the Android platform, like he was easily able to convert those games to the Amazon Fire TV since it's an Android-based device. The only problem that those games have is that since there's no Google Play equivalent, there's not going to be any kind of online infrastructure. So you're not going to get leaderboards, no achievements, and the multiplayer mode in Sonic 2 is also gone. So it's
Even
kind of a hard sell.
Even split screen.
Yeah, even split screen. Since the project never really asked for any kind of split screen functionality in the first place, they're not going to add it into this version, which is really unfortunate. But if you want a console-based platform that will play those games, those editions of those games, well, Amazon's got your back because even the Ouya still doesn't have Sonic 1 or Sonic 2 on them right now.
That's true, yeah. And, well, the controller you have to pay more for, right? It's
separate.
Yes.
How much is it, 40?
40.
That's crazy, considering it's...
No, go ahead, Barry.
No, I was just going to say that considering it's nearly half the price of the console.
Oh, definitely. But like, apparently, it also comes with like at least now it comes with a $10 certificate for like one of their flagship titles that they're shipping with the Fire TV. And of course, one thing I really don't like is that the remote for the Fire TV is basically just a standard remote. So you can't double it like a Wii remote can as a 2D platformer controller or something like that, which I think is a big misstep if they really want to take video games seriously, and they're trying to. They got a bunch of big names behind it, and there's more than just Sonic coming from Sega on the Fire TV. You also got Crazy Taxi, you got The Cave, and I think you have a Virtua Tennis game on there too.
Yeah,
I was going to name the games right now. We got Sonic CD, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 4 Episode 1, Sonic 4 Episode 2, Crazy Taxi, The Cave, and Virtual Tennis Challenge.
Yes, thank you.
Well, it should be noted, too, that, I know people shit all over Sonic 4, but at least these ones are stable, unlike the iOS versions currently that Sega just kind of abandoned.
Yeah, but you're still going to, more than willing to bet, since it's the Android version, you're still going to get the mobile version of Sonic 4 Episode 1. So guess what? You get the minecart.
Oh, that's strange.
Hopefully not, but I guess we'll see when it comes out, right? Or when Barry gets it?
When it comes out, yeah. Day one.
Well, it's already out, technically.
I got the day one edition, yeah.
The day one edition.
And the last bit of news we'll talk about for this week is Cave Speak releases an English patch for Seventh Dragon, which only took them forever because the game came out in 2009. So like half a decade. But now if you guys want to play that game, you guys have an English patch to play it.
Isn't it? I don't really know that much about Seventh Dragon, but apparently it plays similar to Atrian Odyssey, or is it supposed to be like
Yes.
a?
It's the the designers, I think, are on it. So yeah, basically.
Now, is it more like that, or is it more like the Mystery Dungeon series of games, where it's kind of like you just kind of trial and error your way through, and then you just kind of grind to get through the game, like by progressing slowly to build your characters and whatnot?
No, it's like Etrian Odyssey or whatever that game's called. That's basically like the developers Image Pooch or whatever they're called. So yeah, basically they're kind of doing their own version of that. Sega was trying to, but they only did 2 games, and the first one was on the DS, and the second one was on the PSP or like 2020. It was like a futuristic version, and it was on PSP or Vita or something. But the DS one got patched, so that's good.
That's not bad.
That's all for news, I guess. There wasn't that much news this week, like always.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of news this year, to be honest.
Yep.
Well, Sonic Boom.
That was like the biggest piece of news, which is strange.
Yeah, I know. We have to wait a long time too. Well, you never know. It might come out. I feel like it's going to come out in August or September.
That probably sounds about right. I mean, since it is. I mean, as far as all I remember is that it's supposed to be coming out this year, along with the 3DS game we still know absolutely nothing about.
Oh my, you're right. Yeah, I haven't seen a thing of that.
Nope.
I also like to note that the ratings on the Amazon Fire TV aren't that great on Amazon. So.
Oh yeah. Actually, one quick thing about that really bothers me is that you only get like 5.5 gigabyte of storage, even though it's supposed to have 8 gigabyte of storage total. But I'm pretty sure the other half is taken up by the operating system. So you better be careful that you don't download too many games on that thing.
It'll start on fire.
Exactly.
We can talk about the point of the podcast. What was it?
Yeah. The main feature of this podcast, just keeping with the theme of Genesis month, even though it's April, let's just assume that we've locked on a expansion. Like this is the 32x of Genesis month. So we've extended Genesis month by just a few weeks for a few more podcasts. And today we're going to be talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, Mr. Sonic the Hedgehog, who recently followed us on Twitter. Thank you, sir. His spin-off titles on the SEGA Genesis. And I think the most fitting game to start with is Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which has nothing to do with Sonic the Hedgehog. In fact, I don't even think he appears in it. So, yeah,
he's
this
not a
game
character you play as.
Is he a character you play as?
Nope, he's like just a boss. And when you play like the versus mode, it's just, you don't have any avatars to pick from.
That's right, yeah. And so this was developed by Compile, the Puyo Puyo folks, and I'm not sure about you guys, but I mean, when I got this game, like, it was Mean Bean. I never even knew what Puyo Puyo was until years later.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, same here. I mean, of course, I think this was also might have been around the same time that Kirby's Avalanche, which was Kirby characters in a Puyo Pop game, kind of fused together. Of course, I played Mean Bean Machine first because I guess I had a Sega channel at the time, and or at least in '95 when it came out or whatever. And that's probably the first time I actually played it.
Mean Bean came out in November '93, and Kirby's Avalanche came out in '95. So it sounds like
wow.
Compile wasn't they were pretty leery of releasing Puyo Puyo in Western territories, which I guess I could understand. I mean, it still hasn't really hit the West. It released Puyo Puyo Fever released in the UK, I believe, on the GameCube.
Yeah, it also came out in America too. I mean, it only came out on the GameCube in America, however, even though there was like PS2, Xbox, Dreamcast, blah blah blah. But that was probably the first time that Sega was willing, or even Compile even was willing to kind of let the cutesy Japanese characters kind of take front. Probably wasn't until like the early to mid 2000s before companies started, being more upfront about, these kind of puzzle games with cute Japanese characters. Although it's still kind of limited even today.
Well, Mean Bean Machine, the interesting thing about it is it's kind of a Super Mario Brothers 2 situation where it's not so much a direct port with just like a name change. They really changed a lot with the game itself and the assets. It's based on an earlier Japanese version of Puyo Puyo, and I guess just looking at the information about it, it was released in South Korea under the name of Donggu Rite Chi Jak Jun.
Sounds interesting. Rolls right off the tongue. They should just released it like that in America.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and also and another interesting thing about it too is it's the only game on the Genesis that is directly based off of one of Sonic's American cartoons, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, using all the main villains from that with the Milton Knight design of Robotnik, Coconuts, Grounder, Scratch, and even a lot of characters that, and we can talk about this too, appeared, I believe, in the pilot episode of the TV show. But I don't know which one came first. I don't know if they made the show and then made the game, or if they made the game and they're like, hey, here's some robot designs you guys can use.
Well, I do know, at least in like the game over screen, like there's like the shot of Robotnik kind of lording over these other robots, and those robots like are lifted directly. If I recall, that was lifted directly from the pilot or whatever. Or
there's a scene, from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, an early episode where he's like doing this sort of Hitler speech to all the robots in the room, and he's yelling at them. I mean, let's not dance around the fact that Robotnik is Hitler. So, but there's a lot of unique enemies. There's I'm looking at the names here. They got some pretty weird names. Arms, Frankly, Humpty, Davy Sprocket, Squeal, Dynamite, Spike, Sir Fuzzy Logic, and Dragon Breath.
Have you guys ever beaten the game on hard?
Oh god,
I have not. No, I've used codes or Game Genie to get there, but I've definitely not beaten it.
Like when you run up against Robotnik, like he's extremely tough to fight against. I mean, even like you get up to Coconuts and you're like, oh, whatever, it's Coconuts, and then he just destroys you if you don't really know anything about how to make combos with the Puyos.
I got it took me hours, but I got the platinum on the re-release collection, and that was like the last one I had to do, and it was so annoying, dude. I had to see Robotnik's little face with his finger mocking you every time you lost for like hours, dude. It just got burned into my brain.
Yeah, but you had the power of save states, right?
I didn't even use it. Oh, okay. I wanted to beat it. I just wanted to beat it.
George is legit, all right?
All right, I'll trust him on that.
And to note, too, Sonic actually does not appear in the game at all. Robotnik is the final boss, and the main character of the game is actually, I believe his name's Carbuncle in Puyo Puyo. In Puyo Puyo, but here he's called Has-Been.
Yeah. He's the little orange dude that kind of starts off the game and whatnot when you're in the main Puyo field and whatever.
And he just stands around and kind of reacts. And I should note, too, no one ever Google image search Carbuncle. It's the most disgusting thing ever.
Oh.
It's some sort of, like, skin condition where, like, your body erodes and there's, like, it's disgusting. I don't know why they would name anything that. Because I was making a article image one time, and I was like, oh, Carbuncle. But what are your guys' memories with the game? Did any of you pick it up when it was brand new?
No, I never really bought it. I mean, I have it in like all these other Genesis collections that have come out, but it definitely. I mean, it obviously introduced me to like what Puyo Pop is. But when I was a kid, I had the hardest time trying to play it because I didn't really have I couldn't really grasp the concept of like getting combos down correctly, and of course, like everybody else that I would try and play against, which would be like my one or two of my cousins, and then. That's it. Like I didn't really get to experience this game that much. But it wasn't until like later, like Puyo Pop Fever, that I really started getting into it. And of course, I should say they're called beans, not Puyos, in this game. And
there are also the clear ones are called refugees in the game. You think with all these bean puns, they'd call them refu beans or something, but no, they just call them refugees.
Man, I felt like I was ripped off when I played that game. I thought it was going to be like a platformer game where you played as the villains. I was all excited. Nope.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect of the good old days, is that we really didn't have many previews for games. I mean, I guess you could have looked at the back of the box, but even then, I mean, it's got this, I'm looking at it, it has this cutscene where it looks like, oh, maybe you can control the robots or something in that room.
That's the issue too, though. Like when you grew up, like my cousins, they didn't keep their boxes. They didn't care about boxes or anything. They only had the cartridge.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You look at the cartridge, it looks awesome. He's like pointing and...
Yeah, so it's like I kind of felt a little ripped off, so I was never really that into it. Well, I'm a kid. I don't want to be playing no puzzle game.
Should be noted, too, Greg Martin, I believe, did the art for this, the cover.
Yeah, it definitely looks like his style, at least looking at the cover for it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming he also did Sonic Spinball, though I don't want to make that assumption. I believe he did. But, yeah, I got the game, I believe. I mean, I have it here. It was one of the original Genesis games I owned. I owned about, I think, 12 maybe growing up. And I definitely loved this game. It was the only... I was an only child growing up, and I didn't have a lot of friends who would come over. I'd usually go to their house. So it's the only real two-player game that I played a lot because my mom liked it. So, yeah, I'd play this with my mom. And... yeah, it's a good game. It definitely was my introduction to Puyo Puyo, which I think I own about 4 of the games now. But I don't know, there's something about this version that I just really like. I think despite not having all of the special abilities in the later games, like I believe Puyo Puyo Sun for Saturn has a lot of unique new abilities, or even the Tetris, Puyo Puyo Tetris that came out. I don't know. Maybe it's just the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog art style that appeals to me. But and there's some great music too. It should be noted the music is a collection of existing music from the Puyo Puyo franchise, but it was actually remixed for the game in some areas, or changed just a little bit
to make it just feel harder, more American-like.
Oh God, yeah. Well, it has a bald eagle screeching at the title screen. No, it doesn't.
I do like how some of the music sounds in it, but I didn't really get the idea of like, or at least at the time, I was like, oh, this is a Sonic game. Like, it just didn't really click with me. In fact, I kind of, looking back at it now, I kind of feel like the characters look really disgusting. Because as much as you like the Adventures of Sonic art style, I think Adventures of Sonic looks really gross. It's like it was almost bad as Rugrats of like how really terrible the animation can get.
Oh yeah, well the art style itself was almost like Rocky and Bullwinkle, where the characters were just kind of like really wacky looking, even worse than Rocky and Bullwinkle. You'd get like towns, well even in the game itself, it's like a town full of beans. And if you watch the TV show, that's not too far off. There's like towns full of like, I don't know what the hell they are, like cookie people or something. I'm sure that exists. I don't know what
So
they
Barry,
were
you
thinking.
ever play the original?
I have not, no. In fact, that's what kind of confuses me. I mean, is it specifically based on just the original Puyo Puyo from 92?
That's what I've been told. I've been told that it was supposed to be it, but they remixed it and re-released it, sort of like Mario 2. But I don't know. I've never played the original, so I wouldn't know.
It's on, I mean, the thing is, I don't think it's been released to the United States, at least legally.
Well, I know that the Virtual Console on the Wii has some imported Puyo Pop game, but it's probably not whatever Mean Bean Machine was based on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can get Mean Bean Machine on Virtual Console too if you really want to, or any other Sonic collection.
Yep.
Well, I guess if we want to move on to the next one, I was going to note though on the title screen, when you touch the buttons on the 2-player controllers, you can jump the letters around on Mean Bean. It's kind of fun. It's a nice time-wasting thing.
I kept playing. I played around with that more than I probably should admit.
Well, I also wanted to say, too, this was just given the time period, there weren't really that many Sonic spin-offs at the time.
Of course, in 1993, you had Sonic CD on the Sega CD, and if you didn't have that, you had to get something to kind of tide you over until 1994 when Sonic 3 and Knuckles would come out.
That's true. So I could see George's disappointment. I mean, you have Sonic 1, 2. There's a few Game Gear titles, and then you're like, oh, wow, Robotnik the game, and it's a puzzle game. It's one of the earlier spin-off titles, so I could definitely see that. But let's move on actually to a Sonic title, Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball, which actually released that same month in 1993. So it was a interesting year for Western-developed, or at least Western tinkered with games on the Sega Genesis for Sonic. What are your guys' memories of that game?
Bartman can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is actually another game that I was like, man, God, this is like way frustrating for a Sonic game because it was deceptively hard, especially when you're coming off of like Sonic 2, which is pretty easygoing when it comes to, the Sonic style of game. And then you come into Sonic Spinball, which was pretty much entirely American made. And, you could definitely, like, even as a kid, I was like, man, the feeling just feels completely different to me, and I'm not sure why this is, because this is like supposed to be like the next big Sonic game, or at least it disguised itself well enough as it could. And I still remember it because like it was 1 to 2 Genesis games that I got for like I guess Christmas or something like that. But at with Sonic Spinball, I was also playing another game that was frustrating me to no end, which was Disney's Aladdin. But like, going back to Sonic, like it just didn't really click with me when I first started playing it. Because obviously it's a big deal of like it's pinball physics, but now the entire game is dealing with all these pinball pieces, parts of the setting for like the 4 levels that you go through. And you kind of don't realize like how short it is until you realize like you figure out how to play it, and then it's just it's like only 4 levels long, which is really surprising. But
it's difficult.
It is difficult, and I think if I recall, like I remember listening to a Retronauts podcast, there was like a bunch of like Atari and Midway guys working on it. So you had people who worked on like Narc who would work on this Sonic Spinball, and it had some of the boss designs like are like insanely nightmarish to the point of like you get a Robotnik Scorpion or the Vago machine that has like a bunch of puking Robotnik heads. It's like, what the hell is going on?
And this was developed by the Sega Technical Institute. I mean, proper. I know you're mentioning other developers too.
Yeah, but they all pretty much came to work at STI for this project.
George, do you have any memories of this iconic game?
Iconic game, dude? Are you serious right now? We're really talking about this trash?
Was this one of those other games where you got it and you're like, yes, and this is the Sonic game?
I didn't get this game. I went and like, when Toys R Us used to have like a pretty decent section. I don't know if they still have a pretty decent selection of games, but I used to go all the time, and they used to have where you could play games. And I played this one, and I didn't like it at all, dude. I wouldn't want that at all. Like, when you're a kid, you only get a certain limit of games you could buy a year.
Oh, yeah.
For, being a child, it sucks. And I'm not going to be spending a game on the Spinball game, even if it is Sonic. So definitely didn't get this game when I was growing up.
What are your thoughts on it now? You don't.
I don't know. I wouldn't play it, honestly. I'm not really that into pinball, so it definitely wasn't for me. I don't know who they're trying to market it at, like, especially at the time. I don't know. Were that many kids into pinball? Like, I thought that was more like a 70s thing. I don't know.
Well, I guess No, here, go ahead, Bartman.
Well, after they, Casino Night came out, you got to play Casino Night in like Sonic 2 or at least Spring Yard in Sonic 1. And, the connections to pinball were pretty easy to make with Sonic the Hedgehog. And then, I guess they thought for a game with Sonic in it, the next logical step would be, let's just make a Sonic game that focuses heavily on pinball. Like, it sounds genius if you think about it. And, it definitely sounds like a great idea, at least on paper, even when I was a kid, although I wasn't really that big into pinball at the time. I probably never really played any pinball machines because I was too small to actually play on a table. But, there are some moments that I thought were actually kind of interesting, but, it's just surprising, like, how little of a platform, if at all, that the game really is. Like, it really is just trying to focus its gameplay mechanics around pinball solely, and you have some control over Sonic. That's to kind of tilt Sonic around left and right. And he even has a spin dash move, although it's kind of useless.
I can't wait for the Taxman remake on
Yeah,
this
right.
one here.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, that was no. Here, go
I
ahead.
was gonna ask. I wonder if there was like, okay, the game only had 4 levels. I wonder if there's any levels that never made it into the cut. Like 4 is pretty short.
That's true. Yeah.
It is kind of short, although at least from what I could gather up, I mean, it's the Sonic Retro Wiki may say otherwise, but it seemed like it was pretty cut and dry in terms of like what kind of went into the game itself. Like there is a promo video that's floating out there that that somebody at STI made to kind of to greenlight the game within the business, within Sega executives and whatnot. And it looked pretty much the same. Like it looked like the second level, which is the Lava Powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked pretty similar. Like you got to meet Hip and Hop. Like I don't know if any modern Sonic fans remember Hip and Hop.
Yeah, they were in they were in the Archie comics too in the adaptation.
Yeah, and of course, this is like pretty much the only other place where there'd be like other TV and comic book Sonic characters would be coming in. Besides Cluck, there's also like Princess Sally. You got Antoine, Bunny, and Robotnik is still retaining his American design, which always kind of bothered me because like I never really quite get why back in the day there were like these 2 different designs, and it's just because there were just 2 different teams kind of taking care of Sonic at the time.
Well, thank goodness we don't have that going on anymore, right? Oh wait.
Oh.
No, but
One more thing I was gonna ask about the game. Like it was a full price game, right?
Oh yeah.
I believe so.
So was Sonic and Knuckles, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Like I don't really recall there being like any major price differences between Spinball 3 or Knuckles. Like as far as I know, they were pretty much the same price because they figured it's just Sonic, the Sonic tax.
I wonder what would happen if there's ever a Sonic, like now. Imagine all the outrage if there's a Sonic title where it's only 4 levels and it's a pinball game, like randomly, like a side game.
Sonic 4 was 4 levels.
Sonic
That was
Pinball
$15
Party.
game.
Sonic
That's
Pinball
true.
Party
If it
was
was
like
a box
one
game.
Sonic level.
On the topic of price, I'm just looking at the wiki here. Sonic 3 Japanese price was 5,800 yen, and in the U.S. it was $55. Spinball does not have a U.S. price, but it was more in Japan. It's 6,800 compared to the 5,800, an extra 1,000 yen.
I wonder if that's because they imported that game from America to release in their native country. Like Sonic Transforms, Sonic and All Stars Racing Transforms, kind of going through a similar thing. Like it costs more than Mario Kart 8 does, which Mario Kart 8 is like about 3,900 yen, and Sonic Transformed is 6,980 yen.
Sonic Transformed costs more than Sonic Spinball.
Yeah,
Without inflation.
It's so weird.
But on the subject of the game's plot, it's the only game to feature the Saturday morning Sonic the Hedgehog characters who appeared in the bonus stage. I believe they were like frozen in place. You had to save them. It also, like we were saying, incorporates Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog stuff. Now, again, I don't know if that went the game came first and the show picked up on it or what. But like you were saying, there was a television adaptation and a comic book adaptation. So this was probably the most widely covered Sonic game of the time. I can't think of any other games in the 90s that received a game.
Can we
show
safely say? I was gonna say, can we safely say that this is Sonic Boom before Sonic Boom?
Maybe not to that extent, but they definitely tried to cover all their bases outside of Sonic Spinball action figures, which actually would have been kind of cool.
I do remember really listening to the Sonic Boom soundtrack. Like it had those bonus tracks for Sonic CD, and I was really bummed out that the last 2 levels didn't get any kind of remix.
Oh right, the Lava Powerhouse remix. That was I mean, I wanted to get to the music too. the music is probably outside of the absolutely horrible options screen, which is I'll play a clip of that. I'll edit that in right now.
Oh God, no, please
No,
stop
I'll
that,
play
Barry.
I'll
Like,
play. It was only 3 seconds, so don't worry.
well, good, because like, God, I hate that fake guitar synth that's in Spinball and Sonic Zone.
If anyone ever tells you there's no such thing as a bad Sonic song, you just play that for them. But no, Lava Powerhouse, Toxic Caves, they all had they were really good tracks. It's just, like you were saying, it was a shame that the Spencer Nielsen takes on them on the bonus disc weren't included somehow. Then we'd have to be seeing this on Sega CD, and I don't know if we want a Sega CD port of Pinball.
I mean, they were kind of running into some weird production problems because, like, at this point, people who are listening to this podcast probably have already read Retro and are like, oh yeah, no, I know about the story of like how there's 2 different versions of Sonic Spinball where there's 2 different versions of the title screen, blah blah blah, which I think is kind of strange that Sega was not willing to give money to Dreams Come True to redo the Sonic the Hedgehog jingle for an American game. In fact, Sonic 2 is pretty much the last game where you heard that jingle because they had to pay royalties to this Japanese pop band.
Yeah.
I never heard that until like I randomly stumbled upon it in a ROM in it, sometime down the line in my future, and then I was like, I was really baffled by listening to that version of the song.
Yeah, and looking at these early game design concepts too, it's noted that it is very similar to Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, where it shows in these designs it looks like it's almost like a fusion of Eggman and Robotnik, and I actually kind of like it. But he's looking at the mountain from his lair, and then it shows the cutscene kind of as we see it in the final version. I will say that the opening cutscene is pretty awesome. I mean, it's probably one of the more epic. I mean, well, yeah, compared to Sonic 3, I definitely think it beats it in terms of kind of craziness, just getting you into the game. It's just a shame that, you take your first few steps, Sonic's really slow, he moves kind of funny, and then you get into the pinball, and it's not one-to-one with Sonic 2. And I think if they made this game with the Sonic and, the real Sonic physics, it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's really the part that really threw me off the most, is because, I've learned how to play the game through Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, and then you get to Spinball, and the frame rate is lower, and, like you're saying, the handling is just completely different. Mm-hmm. But I think it's because they wanted to simulate more of a pinball feel than a Sonic feel, since, it's that American influence. Like, pinball is an American invention. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they want to try and go for something like, that would probably be more akin to, what is at home.
Yeah.
And there probably was very little communication between, like, the Japanese teams and the American teams of, like, what this game should feature and whatnot.
There were some groovy bits, I guess I'd describe them as that, where it was like you lose the ball, you lose Sonic, and he's down there, and this dragon comes up. Do you remember that? And then he bites you, and you have to like tap the buttons to jump out of his mouth. There were some cool touches like that. There was hitting the birds, which I believe was Cluck from the Saturday morning cartoon.
Some of them were Cluck. Some of them were like other random enemies, like floating space man with hockey pucks. I don't know what the hell was going on there.
It was the 90s. Busting the barrels, you get the Chaos Emeralds. But yeah, it was I think it was the first Sonic game where I realized that if other developers get their hands on Sonic, it's not always it's not going to be the same. I think at the time you're just like, well, Sonic's Sonic. But when you start playing this, you're like, this was not made by the same people, was it? And you're like, it doesn't control the same. This is really weird. Why is this happening? Like Mean Bean, it almost kind of is a lesson in game development. In this case, it's seeing how another team can take Sonic and make it different, for better or worse. It depends on your opinion of the game.
Worse.
Yeah. Well,
The only other real distinct memory I have from this is that, since I got this at the same time with Aladdin, I just like this is so random. Like I just remember like this Aladdin soap that was in the shape of the magic lamp that like I would just smell because I was, I had these as Christmas gifts, all right? And, what else am I going to be doing except, trying to rub the magic lamp and I'm getting soap on my hands on accident? Like, who cares? I don't know why that's such a distinctive memory with me. That's so insane.
So
Yeah, I remember we used to write journals every day in our class
Yeah.
when I was a kid, and I wrote a whole thing about the Aladdin video game, and the teacher didn't really like it. She's like, "So all you did was play Aladdin?" I was like, "Yeah, that's what I did."
nothing wrong with that. So would you say Aladdin's a better game than Spinball?
Oh, yes.
God. Yeah, it is, but, I begrudgingly say that.
Well, we'll get to that when we have our Aladdin special, and you can tell us how much you love that game.
Oh, that'll be a day.
Ali Baba, Ali Boo Boo. Moving on, we're going to jump ahead 3 years to Sonic 3D, Flicky's Island, also called Sonic 3D Blast, released again in November. November is a popular time for Sonic games, and released much later in Japan. Correct?
Yeah, it was released around the time the Sega Dreamcast had come out, but by the time they did that, they kind of changed around some of the artwork so that this, Sonic would kind of match his Sonic Adventure, looks. But they still released it for like the Mega Drive and the Saturn, or it may have been just a Saturn release.
Just the Saturn, yeah. And I wanted to get to the wacky in between Sonic Adventure art, but. The game itself was developed by Traveler's Tales. Obviously, just because it's Traveler's Tales does not mean this is the exact same people who made the Lego games. Teams always change, but it is interesting that this was one of their early games. What are your memories about this one, Bartman? Do you have any?
Hella boring. Somehow I think I actually find this game even more boring than Sonic Spinball because.
Really?
Like the game's never really hard. Like the real difficulty comes from at least kids who have a really hard time trying to figure out how 3D is supposed to work. And of course, traditionally you're going to be used to a 2D platformer, especially when you're growing up playing like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Then you get to Sonic 3D Blast and you're afraid that you're going to like jump off the level and die, or you're just going to kind of get caught up. And then, you're not used to like hitting up to make Sonic go in that direction and whatnot. Although besides depth perception issues, like really, as I kind of grew older, like I just kind of got more used to the fact that the game never really gets difficult. Like maybe the special stages are the actual part where it gets, where it gets hard. But then like the enemies don't really do anything. Like they'll run straight at you. They'll kind of jitter in place. They'll kind of float in the air back and forth, or be on the ground and go back and forth. And you just got to collect 5 flickies and then get to the end of the level. Like it's not. Once you figure out that you can just hold the spin dash button and move around, suddenly the game's difficulty just disappears. Like it's becomes trivial. Just becomes trivial at that point.
And this really is. I was going to say this really is. I mean, Flicky 3D. Starring Sonic.
Yeah, basically. I still wonder if like this may have been just like a Sonic, a different game before somehow Traveler's Tales got the ability to make games for it. Because clearly, they use computer graphic models, and they must have been impressed by that because Sega was losing some serious money to Donkey Kong Country with Nintendo, presenting that around 1994. And of course, that was, Sonic 3 Knuckles, that came around similar around the same time as Donkey Kong Country, which basically sold a ton of copies of that game. And I guess Sega wanting to capitalize on that high that the game industry had, you had Sonic 3D Blast. I first played Sonic 3D Blast on the Sega channel because that was the first, that was when they were introducing like demos to people, and I got to play Green Grove, but I was really nonplussed when I played it as a kid. But I did end up owning it anyway, but I bought it or my dad got it for me on the Sega Saturn.
Okay.
What
George,
do
you
think
love
about
this
it,
game.
Barry?
No,
Want me to
George
start?
loves this game. Yeah. Tell me how much you love this game.
Oh, dude, this game is fucking amazing, dude. All right, first of all, I love the fact that the controls are terrible. Kind of makes the jumping. I like the crappy camera view. That's my
That's
favorite
nice. Nice.
part. No, honestly, I didn't play this growing up. I played it way later, and I played the Genesis version. I don't know if the Sega Saturn version is different, but I didn't really think much of it. I guess it was cool that they focused some on flickies, I guess, the little birds.
hmm
But that's about it. I think that was the only interesting part of the game. Everything else is kind of lame, honestly. Because they never really talk about the creatures you save. That's why.
Yeah, the 3D Blast introduced me to Flicky the game, since that was also in Sega Channel, and I kind of liked it, even though it's kind of a simplistic game.
hmm
But going back, if you go back to 3D Blast, like I appreciate the fact that I think they even got like the sounds from the original Flicky Genesis game on 3D Blast to go along with it, and there's not really that in terms of like Sega Saturn differences. There's not that many. Obviously it's got a lot more detail to it. There's a few more graphical elements that are added to it, and of course the special stages are completely different.
Much better.
Yeah, in fact, actually, the special stages in the Saturn version, I think, are like the best special stages in any Sonic game ever. Like,
Oh wow.
I feel like you actually had to be a little more mindful of like the environment, because there were like suspended platforms that you had to get Sonic onto to get more rings, compared to like on like the Genesis version of 3D Blast, where you just had this terrible looking 3D effect and you had to run across it, and it just looks eye-bleedingly terrible, especially when you look in the background. Oh my god. But yeah, George, please continue. I don't.
Oh, I was gonna say, didn't they have special? We're in the special station. Try that again.
I'm not editing
We're in the
this.
special levels, like
Special levels.
differently in each.
You like pulled a Porky Pig just there.
I know I did.
Level. Go on.
Yeah, the special levels, like the special stages, weren't they like different in each version?
Yes, in fact, there's 3 different versions. In fact, we played on Sega Channel Retro. We checked out the PC version of Sonic 3D Blast, which was, like, it's not in terms of like the main game. Like, it's an okay conversion of the Saturn version, but you get a lower frame rate and less graphical effects that are in the Saturn version. Then you get to the special stages, which is like friggin' garbage. Like, it's the worst thing that they could have possibly ever done.
What are
And
they
probably.
like?
And they probably accommodated for the fact that you were probably going to play on a lower-end machine, which is why initially they decided to not go for at least the Saturn's special stages. But you get a half pipe that is similar to like, in Sonic 2, but you can only run across that half pipe. And, you have a bunch of rings and a bunch of bombs that are also laid out. But the bombs are laid out to a point where you really don't have any way to react against those bombs, because the collision detection, it makes Sonic so wide that like he's bound to hit something sooner or later, and the penalty for hitting a bomb only costs you like 5 rings, but they throw so many of those rings on the level that it's never really an issue. But it just feels so hideous because like the camera like sometimes gives you a really bad angle. And like I said, those bombs can be laid out in a fashion that is like extremely counterintuitive to playing well. And it seems like I said, the designers felt like they realized that it's not very good. So they kind of went in favor of the player, even though it's they're all really poorly designed.
Yeah, I'd say these 3 spin-offs we're talking about, they all have a common theme, and it's that as a kid, it's disappointing once you play them, just because it's promising something and you get something else. You look at, I loved Mean Bean, so I wasn't the one of the ones playing and going, God, I wish I was a Robotnik platformer. But you get to 3D Blast, and 3D's in the title. You're going to be playing, and at the time too, there were 3D games, so you got to wonder, wow, I'm going to be playing 3D games on my Sega Genesis. I'm not even owning a 32X. This is going to be awesome. And I remember playing it, and it was like, I didn't quite understand how this was working. I was like, it looks 3D, but I don't think this is 3D. I think this is a flat image, and they're just tricking me. I get years later, I figured out it was isometric. But yeah, it's.
They should have just made it. They should have just tried to make it Donkey Kong / Vector Man looking and made it a platform.
Well, and the thing is, they could have made like a game where you strip the Flicky stuff and just have like Sonic isometric running around these stages going through loops. I mean, you'd have to make some pretty big stages in order for them to make, to get through them. And I think that's one of the reasons they put the Flickies in, just because it intentionally slows you down so that they don't have to have such big stages. But
because there's not really a whole lot going on in those stages. Like, there's very little in terms of like gimmicks.
Yeah, the enemies aren't difficult. They just kind of hover around the same area. They don't come after you, I don't think.
There actually is a hack. Yeah, like there's maybe only like one or two types of Badniks that'll actually chase after Sonic. But even then, like they're very easy to dispose of, or at least ward away. Like, but like there is a ROM hack out there that takes out the necessity to collect Flickies, and I had a little more fun playing it, but then I kind of realized that the game just became incredibly easy at that point. And of course, the Flickies themselves, there's actually like 5 different kinds. And what's worse is if you do lose track of one of them, then you're going to have a hell of a time trying to figure out where that Flicky ran off to when you last left it. Because you didn't get a map system until at least the Saturn or the PC version.
Now, speaking of the Saturn and PC version, the soundtrack, I think the strongest aspect of the game is the soundtrack. Richard Jacques made the Saturn music. And
he goes by Richard Jakes. It's so weird. Jakes. It throws me off too.
And well, I'm gonna fuck this name up too. Jun Sonoy. I always say his name wrong. I just say Jun. Made the music. Along with Tatsuyuki made, I think I said it right. I'll just edit in correct pronunciations. No, I won't. But yeah, there's a lot of tunes in this game that later appear in Sonic Adventure, including the Green Grove Zone theme, I believe. Some other ones. Can you remind me, Bartman?
Oh, well, of course, there's also like the spin-offs, or like Sonic Generations had like remixes of the Saturn version's title screen.
Oh, the cutscene music is from the opening cutscene music is in Sonic Adventure as well. The yeah, it's a good soundtrack. Would you admit that?
I mean, I definitely like the soundtracks on both games. Like back when I was a kid, since I owned the Saturn version, I really liked the soundtrack. But then after playing more of the Genesis version, I started kind of warming up to that almost equally. Like it's kind of the same case of like the 2 different soundtracks for Sonic CD. Like it's actually hard for me to pick a favorite because I think they're both really good. But they obviously kind of evoke a different style compared, if you try to compare one with the other.
Yeah, definitely. I believe the You're My Hero, I think that appears in some bits from it appear in Metropolis Street Racer. I could be wrong, but
yeah, you're right. I remember Shaddix was pointing this out to me when he's not badgering me to play PSO2. But yeah, no, I mean, I listened to a little bit of that, and I think they actually got TJ Davis to at least sing the Metropolis Street Racer song there. She's not in 3D Blast. No, it's a completely different singer for the Saturn PC soundtrack for the end song. And when I was a kid, I kind of felt it was a little weird. That's a weird love song for a Sonic the Hedgehog game.
Yeah, when you consider who he's rescuing, it's birds, and Knuckles and Tails are kind of just hanging out. So it's a love song to the birds.
It's like, I guess it's Sally doing it? I don't know. Because, back when you're a kid, all you can think of is like Sally when you're playing a Sonic game, even though she's never really been in any of them, except for one.
But she was just standing still.
Yeah.
And speaking of standing still, Tails and Knuckles are in this. However, at least in the Genesis version, they just stand there. You kind of give them rings and they just hang out. It kind of sucked that you couldn't play as them.
Yeah, that kind of bummed
However,
me out too. But looking back at it now, I don't think how exactly that would have been possible for them to include that kind of stuff.
mhm. And and then the Saturn version, which we've touched on a little bit, they join you, I believe, or at least they drop you off into the stage. You have
Yeah.
Knuckles carrying Sonic and Tails carrying Sonic. So
Yeah, it always blew me away when you had those 3D graphics of Sonic, and it's like, oh man, I can't wait for like a whole game to be like this.
and that game was Sonic Adventure, which actually the Saturn version of this released in Japan on the same day as Sonic Adventure International.
I guess that's kind of a way of like, we got a Sonic game that's still here. We may as well just put it out, in case this Dreamcast, people don't want to buy a Dreamcast, they can still at least get a Sonic game to come out for it. Even though Sonic's obviously not as big of a seller in Japan, but he still sells okay.
So what do you guys think that the song Panic Puppet Zone theme
Panic.
was used in 2 really good video games, Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic Chronicles?
Was it?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I at least remember the Sonic Chronicles placement. That's because Richard Jakes also did Sonic Chronicles' soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of using this weird MIDI system that they had to come up with when they weren't using terrible butt rock.
Right.
But yeah, I barely played Shadow the Hedgehog, so I can't really speak for that one.
Well, I will say that of the 3, this one has left a most lasting impression on the franchise, just from the Flickies and from the music that was repeated, not just nostalgically, but also just, I guess they needed some extra music, and they were like, well, just reuse that song from Flicky's Island. No one's going to notice.
I'll give them credit for at least trying to adhere to like the main Sonic style as best they can in 3D. Like they must have been getting like a lot of direction from Sega as they were working on it, but it doesn't change the fact that Traveler's Tales is not really made of very good game designers.
Yeah, the idea behind it and the fact that like it kind of expands the world to the little animals, that's cool, but it wasn't that great of a game.
I guess if you were to take Sonic out of it and it was like Jumpin' Jackrabbit and the Flicky's Island or something crazy like that.
It would have been Toy Story.
Yeah, well, would you have liked the game more if it was not Sonic? It was just if it was Flicky 3D and you played as like a big bird that rescued the little birds?
I don't think we'd be talking about it.
Well, we wouldn't be talking about it, but would you have liked it a little more?
We still wouldn't be talking about it. It's boring.
Yeah.
It's so boring. Like
I guess there would have been no way to sell that game. They would have had to put Sonic on it. Otherwise, no one would have bought it, especially in 1996.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about Toy Story?
Not really. I mean, that I hate that game too. Like once I made that connection when I made that connection when I was a kid, I was like, man, these guys really suck. Yet for whatever reason, I kept getting all these friggin' Traveler's Tales games like A Bug's Life and Toy Story and Toy Story 2, all on PC. The hell was I thinking?
You were a Pixar fanboy. That's what you were thinking.
Yeah, I suppose.
So, what are your guys' overall thoughts on Sonic? I'm sorry we couldn't have discussed the great games, but I think you got a lot more discussion out of the mediocre to bad titles. What are your thoughts on Sonic spin-offs on the Genesis?
Like, just for me, they just never really hit the same mark as what you would get out of like a regular Sonic game. And being a kid, your parents are going to buy whatever Sonic the Hedgehog character is going to be on the box. And, for better or worse, I mean, well, it's weird because, like, I do know that there are people who do enjoy Spinball. I know people who enjoy 3D Blast and Mean Bean Machine. I should probably reiterate it's an enjoyable game. I just think the game looks gross. But
I think this is all just like Sega trying to like outmake shitty games than Nintendo, because like even Nintendo had they had that Dr. Mario game, and then they had the shitty ass Where's Mario game and the Mario Paint.
And they even had good spin-offs too, like the Mario Kart games. I mean, Nintendo was doing a lot of Mario spin-offs, probably far more than Sonic was at the time.
I had Wacky Worlds, which was, I guess, their Mario Paint like spin-off, and I only got it because Sonic was on the box. And then I went and played it, and I went, "Where's Sonic?" Because he's literally not in the game. Like, I saw Tails, I found Tails. He's like this character you can place. Because like Wacky Worlds is supposed to be like this little sticker book kind of thing, and
Sonic's in the UFO.
Yeah, oh, that's right. He's in the UFO.
He's the stage selector, and that's it.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever play Mario is Missing the Game?
That one's awful.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. In fact,
I rented that game with actual money that I earned. Dude, total disappointment. Total disappointment, man. I never bought a Nintendo, like a Mario game after that, like without playing it first. Like, never.
And I mean, that's a gamble that these people they take too. When you put such a beloved franchise, like I mean, the main series Sonic and the main series Mario games were really good at the time. And if you just screw a kid once, they're not going to forget that. Unfortunately, I think we didn't forget it, but we also kept buying the games, even though we didn't. We definitely didn't learn our lesson.
Somebody's got to write for that wiki.
That's true. Yeah. As a kid, as a 5-year-old, you're like, "Mom, I know it's bad, but I got to write a wiki in 15 years." But, it's interesting too. I'm just looking ahead quickly. The Saturn, again, it had 3D Blast. It had Jam, which wasn't really a spinoff. It was a compilation disc. The Dreamcast had Sonic Shuffle, which I don't really want to get into because it's a piece of crap.
Now loading.
Yeah. And it's the original Sonic 06. And you even move into the Xbox and the GameCube area. You have the Riders games, which I've never been a fan of. I find them really hard to play and get into. It wasn't really until... Oh, what's that?
No, I kind of enjoyed Sonic Riders, even though it was basically Kirby Air Ride, but you had more buttons to deal with, which was...
It was overly complicated, I thought.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think that it wasn't until the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 era that we finally got Sonic and All-Stars Racing, which was a good game, and the Transformed was a lot better.
It kind of bothers me that the better Sonic spin-offs were games that are literally aping Mario or Nintendo franchises.
Yeah.
Like not even the racing games, but even like Sega Superstars Tennis, which is a decent tennis game, is still basically trying to ape the popularity that Mario Tennis got. But you know, I don't blame them for trying something new with Sonic. In fact, you know, you neglected to mention Sonic R.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Well, that's the main series title, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's also like a guilty pleasure of mine because it's still made by Traveler's Tales, and I still hate them, but that was like one of the 3D Sonic games that I will actively go back to, and I don't know why. I think it's just because it's easy to kind of break the game and just kind of, I don't know, like there is still, I still think there's some merit to having a Sonic racing game, and they had a decent idea. They just, again, Traveler's Tales doesn't know how to execute their plans very well.
So you think that Transforms is probably too, I guess most people say, too Mario Kart-ish?
It is definitely, like, you know, it kind of has that issue where it picks up the mechanics for Mario Kart almost to a T. And in some cases, like even like the first All-Stars Racing, I feel like doesn't really hold up that well because, you know, there's a lot of weird character balance issues, and you know, it just, like, the level design, you kind of feel it's limited and kind of doesn't really feel that it doesn't really expand upon itself the further you go in. In fact, like it doesn't really necessarily get hard or interesting in terms of, like, you know, track design and blending with the mechanics.
They did much better job though with Transformed, I think. I think that's
they did.
Before Mario Kart 7 release, because remember, even they were saying they were developing it, and then Mario Kart 7 appears and they're like, oh shit, they're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Even then, I think they did a much better job with the concept, and I wouldn't say that it was Transformed that caused Mario Kart 8 to go with this anti-gravity kind of gimmick. But you never know. They might have been saying, hey, guys, we need to do something different. There's other, the market's kind of getting a little, not saturated, but there's definitely transformed out there that they had to at least try something new. But
I wonder how Transformers is going to do in Japan, considering that isn't this the first title to go in Japan? These All-Star Super Sumo digital games.
Not quite. They did put out the first All Stars Racing as an arcade game and a mobile game. So this is actually the second All Stars Racing game to come out in Japan, but this is the first one that actually has a home console release. And it looks like it's actually being more specifically made for the Japanese audience, since they're actually kind of changing around like some of the elements, like the items. One of the items is going to be changed around into a Puyo garbage block instead of the puffer fish. Refugee, sorry.
And a lot of people have actually been saying, why don't they just release a patch so they replace the puffer fish with the Puyo? And I'm kind of agreeing with them. It would be an easy fix, I think.
I'm assuming that it's gonna come. Don't worry about it, dude.
Well,
Sure.
I'd be surprised if the Japanese version on Steam. Well, okay. Here's the thing. I mean, it's coming out on Wii U and PS3 only, but
Yeah.
the Japanese already have access to the Steam store, and there's already Japanese, people who play games in Japan. They're already getting, buying All Stars Racing Transformed. And looking over the comments, they seem to love the fact that Wreck-It Ralph is in there. They don't seem
They like that game.
Yeah.
Sugar Rushed, it's called in Japan.
Yes.
Are they happy that what's that girl's name? Diana Patrick?
They're not even advertising the fact that Danica Patrick is in there. She's still in there. They're just not being as active about it. Probably because NASCAR is not really a big deal over there.
Well, who knows? Maybe in like 20 years, there'll be kids who think of Danica as like the palm tree in Fighters Mega Mix or something like that. Or Pepsi Man. She'll be the Pepsi Man of Japan for us.
Okay. Well, are we going to talk about? Was that the only thing they're going to change for the Japanese release?
That's about it. Little things, nothing that we've really noticed outside of playing down Danica and the Puyo. Oh, the announcer is Tetsuya.
Takanobu Mitsuyoshi.
Yeah.
Which, if it'd be kind of nice if they actually did release a patch for the Steam version.
Yeah.
Because they could somewhat easily add in his quotes, except for the Puyo garbage block, refugee block thing, whatever.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, they could add a menu option saying voice American or Japanese.
Well, if you change
Or
the language settings in the Steam version, it automatically changes the announcer's voice to that specific language. So it's already there, except for the Japanese announcer, because there's no Japanese language option.
Ah, interesting.
Probably because the Japanese are still afraid of the PC market.
The characters speak in Japanese too, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if they do release a patch for the Steam version, I don't know if they'd be able to change that. Although that's pretty interesting that a number of characters like Vice and Sonic are going to get English voice actors, or Japanese voice actors. Although I think they might keep it English for like BD Joe or something like that, because he's when's a black man been speaking Japanese?
Never.
Oh,
Well,
Never in the history
Professor
of
K.
Uki
Uki Waku Waku.
I was going to say, it's pretty crazy how the Steam version of Transform became the best version when the first game was terrible on PC. Like, it had no online multiplayer. It was the worst version.
Yeah.
So, very big step up for Sega on PC support lately.
definitely. Of course, now there's a bunch of angry people saying, well, now our console version is crap.
Yeah.
It's always
PC
about
Master
having
Race.
more, I guess. Well, we're going to talk about other spin-off games?
No, I think that actually covers all the Genesis spin-off games we were going to cover. I honestly can't say anything about Wacky Worlds aside from Sonic rides in a UFO.
Yeah, it's just Wacky Worlds is just a little sticker book thing that's part of their Sega club that has games that appeal to kids, which I just wanted to buy it because it was Sonic, and I was disappointed to learn that there's very little Sonic to do with Wacky Worlds.
However, aren't Toe Jam and Earl in it?
Not Wacky Worlds. They're in Art Alive.
But
I
Echo
didn't
and
get
Sonic
Art Alive.
are in Wacky Worlds.
Yes.
So it's the first Mega Mix game
Pretty much. And
with two franchises.
yeah.
So you can see what it would be like if Sonic and Tails and Echo lived under the sea.
Play that Barney game.
Yeah,
That's
well, maybe
part-
you can live stream that. But that just about wraps up the show. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add?
I wanted to ask you guys,
Mhm.
if you had to put them in the top 3, the best, 2 worst, how's the order?
It's pretty easy. 3D Blast is trash bottom, and Mean Bean Machine is at the top.
There you go. That's mine too.
Mine's
And it's
opposite.
in release order too. So
Mine's opposite, dude. So it just got like Sega, instead of getting better, Sega just got worse on releasing the spin-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yours
it
is the
takes
opposite,
to be this good takes Sega, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah.
So that's the
Well-
end of our show this week.
Yeah, I thought it would be a walk down memory lane, but it ended up being a walk down memory pain. But
It kind of bothers me that around like maybe after 1994, I think that's like kind of the marker for a lot of people of when Sonic basically kind of turned down. Kind of started hitting some really sour notes, and it just kind of went worse from there.
And this year it's going to start again. They do it in a cycle, you see, 2004 to 2006, and then 1994 to 1996, and then it's going to be 2014 to 2016, the bad games.
oh
I
man,
would kind of say right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Sonic Boom was really boring.
I don't know.
I don't know.
You got to keep
I'm
tradition.
positive of it.
I'll try, but like I don't know.
All I got to say is I was really, really hyped for Sonic 06, and I didn't believe the haters, and I regretted it.
Even at the time, I thought Sonic 06 had a lot of issues. And it stems more to than just the gameplay. I think like the tone that it was trying to go for was not quite what I would expect from Sonic the Hedgehog. But of course, this was when it was coming off of Shadow the Hedgehog, and that was kind of like the point where I was like, you know what, I'm done with this series.
And here you are talking about it again. They always come back. You've learned your
Jesus
lesson. You didn't learn your lesson. None of us did.
No, I didn't. Of course,
But
I don't want to talk about Sonic.
like I've told George, I'd much rather be a Sonic fan than a Mario fan, because when there are the good games and there are the horrible games, and when you get a good game, you really appreciate it. Well, let's end this.
Oh wait, I do have one thing I do want to mention. That you can definitely expect a few more Sega Channel retro streams coming up in the near future. Since we did try and take a look at some Genesis games through compilations and whatnot, and of course our lovely Hatsune Miku stream where we got Aaron Weber to hang out in the chat. That was pretty surprising.
Yeah, that was fun.
Too cute. But yeah, expect more from that. We may do more Genesis games. I still want to try and finish Sonic 3 and Knuckles and the PC version of 3D Blast. And we'll see where we can go from there.
Cool.
Look for us on Twitch. You guys can subscribe.
Yeah.
Wherever
definitely.
they do on there.
Just search Sega Channel Retro. It should pop up almost immediately.
I'm also trying to archive some of the episodes on YouTube in case you don't want to watch them on Twitch. But on Twitch, you get 60 frames a second if my computer can handle it.
George, is there any news you have to share before we go?
No, I'm taking ballet lessons, but besides that, nothing else, dude. Just
All right.
follow us on
Nice.
Twitter, on all that social stuff, and check out the site because we have big changes coming up in the near future.
Yeah, and we'll get into that soon. I was going to say next week there is some Crazy Taxi City Rush content coming. For the two people who are listening to the end of this, we're going to have an interview with the developer. We're also going to be giving away some Crazy Taxi City Rush iPhone cases, so be on the lookout for that. And George and I also have something in the works for Sonic. If it goes through, you'll see that probably on Monday. And
I'm all like, what are we talking about? I'm excited.
oh yeah, it's happening. It's happening. So yeah, until next time, I'm Barry,
And this is George.
And this is Bartman.
and thanks for
Bye-bye.
listening. Bye.